Alright, today, campers, today's project is to replace the front wheel bearings, and it's more of a know than do kind of project. What I mean by that is there's not that much work involved, not that many tools involved. I mean, you need a bearing puller. You probably already have one because they're 30 bucks on Amazon. But you need to know a few things or you can get in trouble. So I'll go over what those few things are. And what happened here, I'm not certain this is what happened, but I think we'll find out in an hour. I hit a pothole the size of Nebraska. I mean, I'm glad I didn't have spoke wheels because I would have been in a lot of trouble. But now, when I'm leaning in a turn, I'm feeling just a little bit of something I didn't feel before. A little roughness. So we'll get in here and what the heck, get some new bearings out of it. Now the first thing is, once you get this wheel off, you can flip it upside down around and you could lose track of which side is which. You don't want to do that because your tire tread pattern is designed to go one way. So you want to make sure you put it back the way it was when you took it off. So all I did was I put a tie wrap on the rotor for the right side. And I don't care, you can take a magic marker and write on there, you know, the brake pad to erase it after a short time. But do something so that you know where it's going. Second thing is, I don't like working on a bike on a stand like that. It makes me nervous, but that's the way it is. So the heavy wrenching, and there's very little of that, the heavy wrenching will be done with the bike on the ground the way it normally is, and that means removing both brake calipers. Yes, both. I know some guys tell you not to. Remove both. And by the way, while you're at it, why not just put on some new pads? Might as well go for it, right? Now, there are 3 spacers involved with this axle assembly. There's one spacer here, there's a matching one on the other side, and then there's one in the middle. And that's the one that sets the distance between your bearings and keeps them from wandering around. Take a good look, if I can get this camera in there. See, these lines right here? Remember that, they go outward. Keep that, make notes or take pictures. I like to take pictures, obviously videos, but you need to know that. What we'll do on the ground is we'll remove the nut, the axle nut, that's over on the left side of the bike, because that takes a lot of torque. Don't want to do that when it's up on the stand, just because I'm a nervous kind of guy. And then we'll remove the 2 brake calipers, and we'll just get them up out of the way. And one of the things to be aware of is on the left side of this bike, it has ABS. You don't want to get any kind of magnet around that ABS stuff. It'll mess it up, and it'll mess it up permanently. So be careful. Don't use a magnetized screwdriver, magnetized tools, or set anything on a magnetized workbench, that kind of thing. Just magnets or no. Keep that in mind. Right side caliper removal is a, what is this? A 10, yeah. Right side caliper removal, 10 millimeter socket or open end wrench, whatever you want. But a multi-point socket is a good way to go. And it's just these 2 guys. This guy here, this guy here. Easy. Then we'll hang it up out of the way. Now, the caliper's off, and I just use stainless wire. I bought a bale of aircraft grade stainless wire like 30 years ago, and I still have about 90% of it left. So it's very handy just to tie things up. Remember this, once you got a caliper off, once you have both your calipers off, even one, no touching your brake lever. Do not touch your brake lever. You will be sorry. It will be a mess, and it might even cost you money. Don't do it. It's definitely going to cost you a lot of time. So stay away from that rascal. Now for the other side. Now on your left side, that's your ABS side. This is your ABS. Oh, where are you, rascal? There we go. That attaches to your caliper. Don't forget that when you put things back together. But what you need to know right now is to separate the ABS cable from the brake line. And by separate, I just mean cut the little tie wraps. And I can't see because of the sun, I'll do it off camera, but cut the tie wraps so you have enough play in this wire. Now the bike is up. It's up enough, doesn't have to be up very much. Next thing, it's easy to overlook. There's a pinch bolt right here, pinch bolt. Same size that you used on your, well, it's not the same size as brake caliper, the same size you use for tightening your brake caliper together. So let's see, where is that? It is a, I can't make it out. But it's a hex key, hex wrench. You just loosen, you don't have to remove, you just loosen. And that's it. The next thing is from the left side, we drive out the axle. And here's the thing, soft mallet. All right, do not use a hammer. No steel on steel. Don't, unless you want to buy a new axle, don't do it. If you have nothing but a metal hammer, put a block of wood over the axle and use the hammer on the wood, not directly on the axle. But this is what you want. Nice soft mallet. Sand-filled mallet works. Anything soft, not metal. Now you're going to reach a point where you've driven the axle through as much as you can with the mallet. You have two choices. One, you can get a soft item like a metal dowel, a wooden dowel, and continue to drive it through. The problem with doing it that way is that then the dowel becomes your axle again, and you have to fuss with it. So the preferred way, if you have a good sized screwdriver, over here, it's made for that. Get it through there and just work it out. It'll go, there it goes. See, I'm clear on the other side. The spacer on the other side is now going to fall. That's cool. Just remember, you got to put it back on. And here we have your handy dandy bearing removal kit. Amazon, 30 bucks, 35 bucks. Harley, $8,927. Same kit. And you'll find a lot of different manufacturers on Amazon. They're all the same. And no, it's not high quality, but it works. Here's what you're going to need to pull the bearing. You're going to need a 5/8 inch. You're going to need a massive crescent wrench. And you're going to need, somehow, you're going to need a long hex, because you've got to come all the way through the axle from the other end. So you're going to need to get a hex wrench with at least 5 inches of extension on it. And this is a, let's see if it's marked. It's a V8. So that's what you need, and you need your kit. The book tells us to remove the left side bearing first. Remember, there's the green tie over there that I marked the right side. So here's the left side. This bearing comes out first, and now I'll show you how to do it. All right, this is a very cumbersome process with one person, because you have to come at the wheel from both directions to get to it. But that's just how it works. What we want to do is coming from the other side, and we have to do, remember, we have to do this left side first. So that's the side that's up. We have to bring this, I think it's a 3/16. We have to bring this up so that it mates with this, and then by tightening here, this collet will expand inside the bearing just past the race. And that will give us what we need to pull it out. So what we do, yeah, go like that. I can see it. And I'm on it. And then we push this in like that. Now it's inside. And it will come back out a little and it will stop. Don't pull it hard, it will stop there. That means that the collet is on the other side of the race. So once we expand it, it's going to be great. So first thing we do now, put the bridge on there. Big washer goes on there. Then we got another washer goes on here. Oh, forgot the big nut. The big nut, that's what the crescent wrench is for. This doesn't get tightened. It just finger barely snug. Now we get the washer on there. And wrong nut. Tighten that. Now what we got to do, 5/8 inch, is we tighten this little guy while holding the ratchet on the other end. And that's going to cause that collet inside to expand. And there we go. Pretty good. Honk on it. There. That's plenty. Pull the, come on, get out of there. Get those tools out. And now we're going to go back with our 5/8 again. And this has got indents on both sides to hold that with. And we're going to start turning the big nut, which is going to pull the entire apparatus like this, and it's going to pull the bearing out. And no, it's not easy. And it wants to walk around, and you'll know, there you go. You get that big bang, that's how you know that you just broke the bearing free. And now it's just a matter of continuing to pull until it comes out. And no, it gives you resistance all the way until it comes out. Just remember, it's press fit in there. Well, I've been working on the railroad. All right, getting a little easier there. Come on. It is getting easier. Do you really want to pay $150 an hour for some guy at a dealership to do this? To sit there and spin wrenches like this? Ta-da! Bearing. Oh, nice and clean in there. Now at this point, you can pull out this spacer, and if you lose that, oh boy, game over. It doesn't matter which direction it goes in, but you're going to want to clean it up. You're going to want to run a rag through the hub, throw away your bearing. Looks okay, but I'll take it out and I'll spin it by hand and see how it feels. And what we will do now is flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. And I'm not going to bore you with that because you've seen the process, and it's the exact same process on this side. Now it's time to explain something because there's plenty of room for confusion here. We don't need confusion. Your life depends on this going the way it's supposed to. The bearing we just pulled out was from the left side of the bike, as required. Remember, we put the marker tag on the right side. This is the bearing we just pulled out. This is an ABS bearing, and if you remember when I removed the caliper, there was the little ABS pigtail there. This is the ABS bearing, and you can tell an ABS bearing because it has this nylon or plastic or whatever that material is right there, whereas normal bearing is hard steel both sides. Okay, no question about that. Now here's where there's room for confusion depending on the year of the bike, and for many years. So I rolled this over. Now we're on the non-ABS side, which would be steel both sides, but this is an OEM bearing, and look at it. It's got this rubber insert here. It looks like an ABS bearing because these were an A suffix. The part number had an A suffix on it, and over the years Harley has changed this bearing to this B suffix bearing. So when you look at this, you go, hey, how can I have another ABS bearing? It's not. It's just the way they made it originally. I guess I shouldn't tap it like that. It shakes the entire camera. So it's not this ABS bearing. Another thing you need to know, here's the new ABS bearing, and it's not the same color as the original. That's yellow. The orange inside is like that. But how do we know which way goes where? Because this side, which is no longer yellow, it's gray. This needs to be up against the ABS sensor so it rotates and the magnet can pick it up. Well, these bearings are grooved, and I mean they're really off center with this groove. That groove goes in on the axle, so it's just that simple. Here's the new one. It's got the groove. That means, and as it happens, they retained the orange, so the orange is going back in, but the groove goes in. Same thing on the rear axle. But I forgot to mention as well, the book told us to remove the left side first. When you're doing the rear bearings, you remove the right side first, because the right side is where the ABS is. So hopefully that takes care of a little possible confusion when you get going on the job. Now I'm going to pull that bearing, and I can tell you right now, I can spin this like lickety-split, right? Cannot, this is a new one, cannot, tight as a bug. So I'm on the right track with thinking that these bearings were getting ready to go. We'll see what this one is like. I can do it right now. Oh yeah, it's not sloppy. You know, I can't find any slop in there, but it's easy to rotate that bearing, and there's just no way to do it with the new one. Good move on this. Something to show you. I don't know if it's going to show up very well. You should watch my other video on sealed wheel bearings, where I tell you that sealed wheel bearings are not sealed. What I want to show you, this is the one that I just removed, and this is the inside face of it, and right here is grease. It's coming from the inner race. So this bearing is failing. Just that simple. And you know, all it takes is, well, there are a couple ways. You need to watch my other video, but washing your motorcycle. I don't wash my bike, I wipe it down. Water will get in there, chemicals will get in there, and it forces the grease out. And then you have no lubrication on those roller bearings in there. And I don't care, they're made of chrome and nickel and all that good stuff. They still need that lubrication. Another way is what I did. Hit a big old honking pothole and boom, all that, and the axle doesn't want to do it, and the seal gets damaged. So that alone, that's worth the effort of doing this change. And now we got to put it back together. So, pretty simple tool. Here is the bearing. In your kit, you're going to have 3 of these spacers, and they all have a different interior size, and it's a Goldilocks thing. This one is too small, a little bit sloppy. This one is just right. This one is really sloppy. We want the one that's just right. And it's going to go on top. But first, and I've already cleaned everything in there, and I do not have the spacer in there. Just a little, very, very light coating of, oh, that's new. No reason to open that yet. And come over here. Genuine Harley Davidson Sin 3. Doesn't have to be any motor oil. Some guys use grease. I think it's too thick. You just want to get a coating on here. Not a big coating, just like that. Remember, this is the ABS bearing goes in first. This is the left side goes in first. The red goes inward. The groove goes inward. The finger gets cleaned. There we go. And the cap goes back on the incredibly, ridiculously expensive Harley Sin 3. Right spacer goes on the bearing. The installation tool couldn't be any more simple. It's just a long bolt. This guy is going to go on the other side where the opposite bearing normally lives. It's going to come up through here, and then, if I can do this without losing everything, it's easiest to stand it on its side. Come on through, like that. Put the washer on there, and there should be, yeah, there's a little bit of a face machined onto the nut. Thread it on down. Now, I'm kind of a fanatic about this next part, because if this gets cocked, boy, that's a bad day. So what I do, I'm still snugging with my fingers. Keep going, come on. Getting old here. I look over here and I make sure that I'm centered back here. And it's pretty hard to get off center, but I am a fanatic about it. And here's the problem, or here's the issue. This is going to take a lot of oomph to do, to seat in, at least for about the first half. After, excuse me, after it gets going, it gets a lot easier. But for the first half or so, it takes a lot. So you're going to want your longest wrench. Mine happens to be a good old Snap-on, 3/4 inch, like that. The problem, though, is that the other side is recessed. So I have to use a socket, and it's hard to get, you know, you want a long ratchet on that thing. So I'm going to dig around in the tools and get the right socket and get a long handle, maybe a breaker bar on the ratchet, so that I can do that without having to strain too much. All right, I've got what I need here. Breaker bar and a 3/4 socket coming in from the back side. Box wrench, and use that groove to eyeball and make sure you're not going in crooked initially. And it should just keep going about like that. Again, be easier with 2 people, but you can do it with 1. And no, I'm not omitting anything. There is no torque spec when you're setting bearings like this. You'll know when it hits that lip inside, because it just won't go anymore. And I'm getting there because it's just inside the edge here. And you see how this tool right here fits inside here, because it's the right piece. And right there, my wrench just stopped. You see that? Just stopped, period. That means it's seated. You don't need to go all crazy on it at this point. Go, That's it. It's on there. In there. By the way, people have asked me, I get emails, why I don't wear nitrile gloves, shop gloves. I have immense hands, and it's been a problem all my life. I stopped being a full-time mechanic because I'm tired of having greasy hands, because those gloves, the XX, the largest I can find or order, aren't big enough. I put them on, they don't last 1 minute. They just rip apart. So that's why I don't wear those gloves. And this part comes out. Let's have a look. What we're going to do is, just in case any of that motor oil came out and undid, just like that. And it's beautiful. It's just inside, it's chamfered in there, and it's just inside there, and it's beautiful. So now we're going to do the same thing on the other side, but this side is a little different. Why is it a little different? Because why would Harley make things easy? They wouldn't. Okay, the spacer is critical at this point. If you forget this, you're going to be so upset. If you've done the rear wheel bearings, you'll know that this part gets anti-seize, gray anti-seize in it. This one does not. So the one on the back axle is very, very tight to the hub. This one is not. This one's very sloppy. So it doesn't need anti-seize. Now here's an interesting thing. This spacer is well named spacer because, let's see, let me disconnect the camera and show you. The depth, get my fat fingers out of there. Stay, behave. The depth here is about double what the bearing depth is. And if we just use that bearing tool and set this in here, we would be wonky wrong. This spacer is used to set the depth. We're going to go up against that spacer because that spacer sits like that. So that's why this is so critical and why it's so strong. And again, I'm going to put a little oil on there, and then I'm going to take that down, and it'll contact that spacer, and we'll be good. This bearing, you know what it is? I need my decaf. So much better. This bearing, unlike the ABS bearing, is not polarized. However, meaning it could go in either direction, either side. But Harley does say in all of its material on bearings that the numbers side go out. On the ABS bearing, it has numbers on both sides, letters on both sides, but it doesn't matter because it's color coded, so we're good on that one. This one, however, does have letters just on one side of the outside race. So we're going to follow Harley protocol, and that's the side I have facing out, is the side with the letters. And get back up here. I'm good and square. Back here. Ready to rock and to roll, I hope. Got the socket there. And again, I'm eyeballing it to make sure I'm good and square. If it's cocked, we're doomed. And it's not cocked, it's going in beautifully. Just taking it easy. Waiting to contact that spacer. And when I do, that's the stop point. And now the setting tool, this guy right here, is now recessed into the hub. So I'm getting close. That's it. Now the Harley book doesn't say to firmly seat or anything. It says just touches the spacer. So I'm not going to push it. What I'm going to do is back it off, because I can always go back and do this some more. I'm going to back this off, remove it, and then I'm going to check if the spacer is sloppy in there. If it's sloppy, then I need to set the bearing a little more. But it's better to err on this side and have to go back in. And it's right there perfectly, and I'm not moving that spacer at all. Turning freely, it's a beautiful thing. We are ready to put this wheel back on, get it all clean. Now, this is the best time you're ever going to have to clean up your front wheel, because you know it's always buried under the fender, you can't get at it. So now is a good chance. Get in there, clean it up, use whatever you've got, whatever material you have, and make it all pretty. I like to keep my bike really shiny. See, I'm a pilot, and you keep things clean because that's how you spot when you're having a problem. You see a little oil, you see a little grease someplace you're not supposed to see it, and that's the dead giveaway that you have an issue. So I keep my bike really clean. Okay. And really well maintained too, because that's my ass. And I kind of like my ass, so I don't want it to get killed. All right, installation, of course, is the opposite of when we removed it, but everything gets cleaned up, so I've already cleaned. Remember, this is our left spacer, and the lines go outward when we put that back together. On the left side of the bike, our ABS sensor is the spacer. Got it? So that will go like that. And then the nut, the washer and the nut will go on there. So you'll see how that goes now. Okay. Remember not to hit your ankle on that. That's what remember. And why is that light on? Turn it off. There we go. We did not use anti-seize on the spacer in there, but we are going to use anti-seize on the axle, which is also all nice and cleaned up. And that is per the book. So again, I'm not making this up. No anti-seize, yes anti-seize. A light coating. And when you pull your axle, you should find it's pretty dirty with the anti-seize. To tell you what was done right. Normally, that's what you need is a bead and an M&M in my throat. Can't work without M&Ms and decaf. Got to do it. This should be enough. And I'll never get my hands clean after this. All the way around. Just a coating. That's all it is. Just a coating. So It's not a lubricant. As long as you're covering the metal, you're good. And once you've got the metal all coated, you can wipe away the excess. Not with a rag, just keep at it with your finger. Get rid of the excess. Because this can, if you get too much in there, and you start getting these surfaces rotating in contact with each other, using the anti-seize for what's going to make the contact, you can generate a lot of heat. And you don't want that. Okay, now I'm ready to go down, set this thing in, and insert it. It's pretty obvious because we know how we took it out. But this is the right side, and this will go in from the right side, through the fork, through the spacer, then into the hub, just like that. Now everything is where it should be, but there's something important to show you. There's this wire. This is your ABS sensor, and it is, where do we go? It is this guy right here. That is your inside spacer on the left side. That's your ABS detector. The way you know where to put it, so here's your slider. It's got this little stub that the wire is attached to. You just push it until it contacts the slider and back it off a bit. 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch. That's all. Period. Then you tighten it down. Torque time, torque wrench, 75 foot-pounds. Make sure you look at your wrench carefully and you get it to 75 foot-pounds, not Newton-pounds. All right, 75 foot-pounds is done on the axle nut. So we have the pinch bolt on the right fork, and that's 22 foot-pounds. Get that hex in there just right. There we go. That's it, 22. That's what the man said. That's what the man got. Now, the only thing we have left are to replace our brake calipers and get rid of this guy. I'll get rid of that guy right now. Just like that. See? They wouldn't want to tie me up. Wouldn't work. And that's almost it. There's one more thing to show you when we put the calipers back on. Now, here are 2 things you need to know. We're on the left side, the ABS side. Here's your ABS wire. I have the brake caliper in position. You might have to spread the caliper pads a little bit. Just do it the very, very least that it takes to get them back on the rotors, because otherwise you're going to mess up your fluid. But here's what you need to remember. This guy holds the ABS wire. Don't forget, because when you're working, it probably slid out of the way. It's easy to forget. Goes right on there, and then the caliper bolts go in like that, and they get snugged down to 38 foot-pounds. 38. And then, once you've got this all assembled, of course nothing ever wants to cooperate. There we go. Once you've got this all assembled, give your brake lever a couple of pumps, because it's going to be sloppy. And if you just jump on the bike and head out and you expect to have some brakes up there, you're not going to have some brakes up there, because the pads are retracted. So not good. Not good at all if you do that. So first thing you do, get this torqued. Tick. Tick. We're good. I need to put one more tie wrap on here where I removed it. Otherwise this will get wire fatigue. And that's it. And that's it. We're good to go. Back on the ground, ready to roll. Spun the spun the tires a couple times, and I could hear everything sounds good. So that's great. Tomorrow I have a ride with my American Legion riders, 100 miles, and I've got all new brakes, all new wheel bearings, 3-hole oil change. I am good to go. I hope this helped you, and ride safe.